Holy and mighty one, we give you thanks for so many blessings, for the plants and animals of the creation, and for special people in our lives. Be with us as people gather today here and in many other places to celebrate the proclamation of emancipation to the slaves of Galveston, Texas, on this Juneteenth day 156 years ago. We give thanks for Mayor Christopher Taylor and all the City Council of Ann Arbor for making this an official city holiday. Help us to elect and to encourage leaders to bring the promise of freedom, equality, and the right to vote to Blacks and all peoples of our community, state, and country. Help us to use this Juneteenth celebration as an opportunity to listen to the experiences, ideas, and cultures of peoples who are different, but who still are part of this country of many peoples. Help us to work to bring freedom as it has been promised to all. We remember those who suffered and died during the Tulsa race massacre 100 years ago. We remember those who have suffered and died as a result of the COVID-19 coronavirus epidemic. Be with those who are suffering as a result of the practices, the ideas, and the hatred that were used during times of slavery. Help us to be a part of the change that pushes aside the anger and hate of white supremacy and systemic racism, that seeks to help all people to be treated fairly and with justice. Help us to figure out ways to reform the policing practices and the criminal justice system so that all are treated equally. Be with us as we continue to work on the promise that schools, housing, healthcare, voting rights, and jobs are available to Blacks and to all, as the saying, Black Lives Matter, states. Be with us, O loving one, as we take the progress of the past and move into the new frontiers to end slavery, oppression, and suppression, so that all might live in your love. We pray, amen.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the 27th annual Juneteenth celebration and observation here in the city of Ann Arbor. Today, it is a collaboration between the city of Ann Arbor, the local branch of the NAACP, and so many other collaborating and contributing organizations. We are so grateful that you're here and so grateful that we are today celebrating and honoring this incredibly important day. On Juneteenth, we reflect upon our nation's original and most enduring sin, that is race-based slavery. We reflect upon the celebration and promise of emancipation, and we commit ourselves to root out the systems of white supremacy in government, healthcare, the economy, education, law enforcement that were constructed to sustain the slave state and, after its demise, to perpetuate race-based hierarchy. The work is vital, but the work for equality doesn't begin or end with this here today. We work to find ways to provide more housing and lower housing costs throughout our city to halt increasing segregation in Ann Arbor. We work to further diversify our workforce, to improve law enforcement, to ensure that the growing effects of climate change are confronted and overcome by all members of our community, to provide more trees, reduce flooding in lower incomes areas of our town. What we need to do is develop and implement initiatives to make sure that the structures of power are rooted out and opened up. This is our project and our priority. And the celebration of Juneteenth as a city holiday is an incredibly important part of that venture. It casts a light on this important day, and it's a new day. I am delighted and proud that the Ann Arbor City Council has declared to be a city holiday, a formal city holiday. We've done that by resolution weeks ago, and the resolution is a collaborative effort. And I think it's really important that I read the resolution in full so that we all understand, that we all hear what it means to the city of Ann Arbor, what the holiday and observation of Juneteenth means to the community as a whole. So here's the resolution passed by the City Council. Whereas Juneteenth is a holiday marking the end of slavery in the United States, following its establishment on the North American mainland in 1619. Whereas Juneteenth is officially celebrated in the state of Michigan. Whereas United States Army Major General Gordon Granger landed at the port city of Galveston, Texas in June 1865, following the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, on April 9, 1865. Whereas Major General Granger announced on June 19, 1865, in General Order Number 3, which reads in part, and I'm quoting here, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor." I've ceased quoting. Whereas the June 19, 1865 General Order Number 3 was preceded on January 1, 1863, by President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation decreeing that persons held in slaves in designated areas, among them Texas, were to be henceforward free. Whereas this 2.5-year time chasm between the Emancipation Proclamation and General Order became the first of many subsequent instances of the affirmation that justice delayed is justice denied. Whereas following General Granger's General Order Number 3, June 19, that is Juneteenth, became recognized by enslaved persons and their descendants as the date of final emancipation. Whereas since then, as the oldest known celebration commemorating the end of institutional slavery in America, the celebration of Juneteenth has persisted into the 21st century and has come to honor the strength, endurance, and dignity of the African Americans subjected to the atrocity of American slavery, to celebrate the unknowable joy of their liberation, and to highlight the centuries-long and incomplete struggle to redeem the American creed of equality for all. Whereas the justice delayed is justice denied principle highlighted in the events surrounding Juneteenth's origins lies at the heart of the country's current national reckoning. Whereas it is right that the entire Ann Arbor community join together to acknowledge the central and shameful role of slavery and government-structured racism in our history, and the moral imperative that we do all we can, resolved and united, to counter slavery's enduring legacy of race-based discrimination and institutional racism. Whereas this enduring legacy manifests itself starkly in the city of Ann Arbor and greater Washtenaw County. Whereas the candid acknowledgement of this history and this present is necessary if we as a nation, state, or city are to be successful in our effort to build a truly equitable, diverse community that exemplifies and promotes the fundamental American values of freedom, equality, liberty, and justice. Whereas the city appreciates and acknowledges the Ann Arbor branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People for its consecutive annual celebration of Juneteenth at Wheeler Park beginning in 1994. Whereas the city looks forward to continued collaboration with the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP and others in annually commemorating the Juneteenth celebration. And whereas the city further encourages all community members to participate in Juneteenth, to celebrate the countless contributions of African Americans to our nation's and our community's history and culture, and to continue to promote diversity, equity, and a strong sense of community in Ann Arbor. Resolved. The City Council approves Juneteenth as a city holiday. Resolved. The third Saturday in June shall be recognized and commemorated as a day of celebration for Juneteenth. Resolved. City leadership and staff will observe Juneteenth the Friday before the formal day, recognizing it to be a daily celebration for Juneteenth on the third day of June each year, and that City Hall shall be closed on that day. And finally, resolved that the city administrator be authorized to take all necessary administrative actions to implement this resolution. That being done, I'm so proud and pleased to again join you in celebrating and honoring Juneteenth and reflecting upon the work undone. Now I turn it back over to continue the celebration and presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Rosalind Parker. I am the only grandchild of Mrs. Joseph David Wiley Moon, and I am happy to share a few things about my grandmother, Mrs. Moon, affectionately known as Moonshine by many in Ann Arbor. And in the spirit of Juneteenth, my grandmother, beautiful spirit, and definitely a Renaissance woman, sophisticated lady, trailblazer on so many fronts. And she really instilled in me and many others some really key principles of having confidence and self-determination, especially in terms of economic and political empowerment. She practiced what she preached, and she lived by some key principles. She paid for every car she drove in cash, never had a car note. She took her brown bag lunch with her to work every day. And so, you know, she was determined to be very practical. One could say even frugal with spending her money, but she built a very powerful legacy by living in those principles. And similarly, in terms of, you know, political activism, my grandmother was one of the first people to vote for President Obama, who was then Senator Obama at the time. And obviously we had never had a Black president before then. So a lot of people told her she was wasting her vote. She voted early because she always voted early, absentee ballot. And she said, well, if not enough of us vote for him, he definitely will not win, right? So, you know, you have to be a trailblazer and a visionary. And she was definitely that. And I cannot share within 5 minutes how much I really have learned from her example on so many examples. Obviously a very active, longstanding member of the NAACP. She joined at an extremely young age. And likewise, she gave me a life membership in the NAACP when I was like 8 years old, and I have kept it up. You know, she just was very committed, very proud of us as a people, and really living by an example of, you know, hard work and discipline. But she also knew how to have a good time. She was a dancer. She enjoyed, you know, a range of good music. She very sociable, liked being around people, liked entertaining, and definitely liked things that were intellectually stimulating. Avid bridge player. For everyone that knew that about her, she played competitive bridge, so that was not a casual thing for her. She took that very seriously. But similarly, just really someone that cared about our advancement as a people and our valuing each other as a people. And family was, you know, very, very important to her. I was truly blessed to be the only grandchild, so I got to spend time with her frequently, saw her several times throughout the year. I'm here in Washington, D.C., so didn't get to see her as much as I would like, but we spoke every day. And I truly miss those conversations because even up until the end, she lived to be 97 years old. Mine's still very sharp. And so every day was a great conversation to be able to talk about what was going on in the world. She was very active until the end on current events and, you know, putting it in the context of historical events. And having been raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and going to Lemoyne College and Booker T. Washington Elementary School, actually Booker T. Washington High School, I'm sorry, and then Lemoyne College. You know, she had a lot of experiences there that formed her early years, and then she was able to take that information and she had a passion for housing, which is why she decided to go into setting up housing commissions throughout the state of Michigan, including what brought her to Ann Arbor as the first Black commissioner at that level in the city of Ann Arbor, and really being brought in to really save the housing commission because a lot was not being done. Ann Arbor was about to lose its funding. And what she was able to accomplish in, I believe it was like a year for something that should have been done in 5 years or 4 years was unheard of. And because of her ability to not only manage, but also her financial savviness, she was really doing the work of two people. And when she left the commission, she was replaced by two people. So clearly they needed her skill sets. But again, she definitely, her love of finances was well known. And that's why those principles of really living within your means and not overextending yourself, but still, you know, enjoying things when you can afford to do so, are really good life lessons that I think more of us need to discuss. More of us need to, especially with younger people, about finances and budgeting and really understanding how to manage our finances and how to invest. She was very savvy with her investing. She was fortunate, especially as a woman, because coming through at the time period that she came through, women were not exposed to a lot of things that she was exposed because of her positions at the different housing commissions, where she could sit down with owners of the bank and managing, you know, multi-million-dollar budgets, having that conversation with them. She got exposed to different types of investments. And so that allowed her to also implement some things on her personal finances that a lot of women just didn't know about, especially of her generation. And that was another blessing that she definitely passed along, that is important to emphasize. So definitely miss her every day, but glad to be living in her legacy and continuing on. I do community-based work here in Washington, D.C., so I give a lot of myself around drug use prevention, education, and related youth development and family strengthening here. And her work in the housing area in Ann Arbor, as well as other places, is what really inspired me to also be very community focused in my own walk, and hopefully also benefiting others in that realm. So happy Juneteenth 2021 to the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP, and thank you for this opportunity to share some about my grandmother, Mrs. Joseph David Wiley Moon.
We have the honor of having the youngest member of the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP here with us. She was able to find some time in her extremely busy schedule to do this interview. How are you, Layla?
Good.
Let's tell the audience a little bit about Layla. How old are you, Layla?
7.
You're 7 years old. Which school do you go to?
Pittsfield Elementary.
Okay. What is your favorite subject?
Reading.
What is your best subject?
Reading.
Which subject do you need the most improvement in?
Be honest.
Math.
Mathematics. So I'll bet that you're real good in history. So I'm gonna ask you a history question. Have you ever heard of Juneteenth? Good,
Yes.
good. So tell me what you know about Juneteenth.
I know that Juneteenth is the day that slaves were in Texas knew that they were free.
Okay. So what does the term being enslaved mean to you?
Go ahead. Remember we talked about this? Go ahead. You don't remember what we talked about? Remember how you don't, when you're an enslaved person, how you don't have the freedoms that we have now, right? Remember, sometimes you can't live with your mom and dad, right? What else would you say? Talk to Mr. Hampton. He's asking you the question.
You would
How would it make you feel?
not happy.
Not
Sad.
happy?
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. So Juneteenth is a legal holiday in Ann Arbor, Michigan now. And that makes me feel really good. How does it make you feel?
Good.
Do you
Why
know
does-
what does the word holiday mean to you?
Special day.
That's a great answer. Juneteenth is a special day. It's very important to people who were enslaved at one time and or who has relatives who were enslaved. And probably all of us have relatives who at one time, long, long ago, who were slaves. So this holiday is to celebrate their tenacity and their perseverance. Are those words too big for you?
Yes.
Well, let's have Grandma explain to you what that means.
Godmother.
Let's have Godmother explain to you what that means.
Which word? Perseverance, or we gotta do that one over, William.
Perseverance and tenacity.
Tenacity. You know how you really, really, really want a toy and you keep asking over and over and over? Tenacity. And perseverance is you keep going and keep going and keep going in spite of us saying, no, Layla, it's not your birthday yet. Or no, Layla, it's not Christmas yet. Gotcha. Does that
So
help?
Layla, during the holiday season, does it make you happier to receive gifts or happier to give other people gifts?
Happier to give other people gifts.
Oh, right answer. right answer. Right answer, right answer, right answer. Did you practice that answer? Well, you did a good job answering that question. Tell me something about Layla that most people do not know.
I like to sing.
Do you? What kinds of songs do you sing?
Any
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
song.
The kids still sing Mary Had a Little Lamb? They probably don't.
Yeah, they probably do, but what's your favorite? What was your first song that you remember ever singing? The one that Poppy was telling you about. Remember?
Row your boat.
Yes, row, row, row your boat.
All right. So are you looking forward to being 8 years old?
Yes.
So when you get 8 years old, will you be a little girl, a medium-sized girl, or a big girl?
I'm guessing medium.
Okay. So right now, are you a little girl?
Kind of.
Are you?
Kind of.
Okay. So are you looking forward to being in the double digits? Like 10 years old?
Yes.
And do you know why? Okay. So have you ever marched before?
Yes.
What were you marching for? You graduated from first grade?
For the parade.
For the parade.
Okay, great. Well, you look really pretty today. Do you know that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So those flowers have roots or not?
No.
No.
They don't.
About the headband? Tell him about the headband. When did you first wear the headband?
At a wedding,
At whose wedding? He knows Jordy.
Jordy's wedding.
Okay.
The flower girl.
I was a flower girl.
I bet you a real good flower girl.
Thank you.
So how long have you been a member of the NAACP? Approximately.
You remember? Oh, just a few months. So we have your card here. So let's open the card and maybe it'll tell us, huh? This is your official card. It's got your name on it and everything. And I don't see a date on here. Oh, here we go. Nope. Expires 3/8, so March 8th. Okay, so since March, so how many months is that? March, April, May,
June,
3 months?
3 months.
3 months. So tell Mr. Hampton, you've been official members for 3 months.
Well, you know what, Layla? That's excellent mathematics. You told me you were not good in math. Didn't you tell me you weren't good in math?
Yeah.
But you figured that out real quickly. You're my very first interview with a 7-year-old member. So I'm real happy. Can you tell?
Yes.
So what are your plans for activities in the NAACP?
Juneteenth.
And are you going to be present at Wheeler Park this year?
Probably.
I don't know.
Because they may have some free food there.
Ooh, we like free food.
Yeah, maybe some free food. So you might be, if you eat enough, you'll be as big as a 10-year-old when you leave. All right. Is there anything else you would like to tell us?
Up to you. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh, we are so pleased you were here. I am so excited about doing this interview with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again very soon in person. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Layla. Do you know who Layla Ali is? Do you, Susan?
Oh, yeah.
Layla Ali is Muhammad Ali's daughter. Have you ever heard of Muhammad Ali? Oh, okay, a little bit too far to your age range. All right, Layla. Well, thank you so much.
Good morning, Ellie. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, I wanted to again congratulate you of being the recipient of the 2021 Scholarship Award given by the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP. And thank you again for being available today.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor. I
Yep.
feel blessed and honored to receive the scholarship.
Well, thank you. We feel you're a very worthy candidate. We appreciate your being available. So we'll start with a few questions. We wanted to get your insight and to understand better what you feel about this award and scholarship. So the first question is, what are your plans for the award?
So since I'm going to Eastern, I'll be enrolled in like aviation flight technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to save money to pay for my flight hours.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. So being in that field of study, is it a very specialized training?
Yes, like you have like people that actually take you to the airport and fly you like, and then.
Wow, that's cool. That is cool. Well, thank you. Next question. Why is higher education a goal for you?
With that, I'll start. Me being a Black man and living in a foreign country, I feel like having a higher education like opens so many doors for me. That's why higher education is like a goal to me.
Okay, nice, nice. And our last question, the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP is celebrating the 27th year of Juneteenth. Today is the first year Juneteenth is being celebrated as a legal holiday in Ann Arbor. What are your thoughts on that?
So basically, I'll start with in Ann Arbor, like now, like I would start with like people like that come from different countries that live in Ann Arbor. Most of them don't know what Juneteenth is, but like when like the holiday becomes legal, I think it's bringing more awareness to people. That's why it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be happy for.
Well,
Most people will like be aware of Juneteenth just by knowing that it's a legal holiday.
Yes, I agree with you. The notoriety will definitely do wonders for spreading that positive word and getting that true information out there.
Yeah.
So thank you again. We appreciate your being our recipient and our winner this year, and we wish the best to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you.
Congratulations on being one of the 2 recipients of the Ann Arbor Branch's 2021 Scholarship Award. My name is Loretta Flowers, and I will be interviewing you today, Shayla, on a few questions. Your first question is, what are your plans for this award?
My plans for this award is to use it towards my tuition, which I will be attending Spelman College in the fall, and the tuition is kind of pricey, so this money will definitely help me further my goal and reach towards my goals.
Very good. My second question is, why is higher education a goal for you?
Higher education is a goal for me because I feel like that I can keep going and that I can reach the goal of being a doctor. And I'm also the first generation on my dad's side and the first person in my family to go straight to college on my mom's side. So I'm doing it for them, but I'm also doing it for myself.
Beautiful. And your final question is, the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP is celebrating its 27th year of Juneteenth. For the first time today, the city of Ann Arbor has made Juneteenth a legal holiday. Share with me, please, what this means to you and what you know about Juneteenth.
It means a lot to me to know that my people have a day where we're acknowledged for our freedom. Without our ancestors, we wouldn't be here today. So that means a lot to me. And what I know about it is that it's the day that marks that we're free and that we're not enslaved anymore. And so, yeah, that means a lot to me.
Thank you, Shayla, very much. And I would like to also conclude by saying congratulations, graduate, a 2021 graduate from Skyline High School in Ann Arbor. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Hall Cham. I have been a resident of Ann Arbor since the mid 1970s when I started to attend the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor campus. I have 2 degrees from that university, my master's in guidance and counseling and a doctorate in educational administration. Today, I am here as a representative for the Political Action Committee of the local branch of the NAACP to talk about 3 things, primarily voter suppression, criminal record expungement, and town hall meetings. First, I want to start by saying that voter suppression actually started, and I'll give you a definition of what it is, but it started in 1865, 1877. And that is directly tied with the Civil War. So when people say that things, oh, that's history, I'm going to bring it up to March 24th of 2021. But let me go back to what the legal definition of voter suppression is. It is any legal or extra-legal measure or strategy whose purpose or practical effect is to reduce voting or registering to vote by members of a targeted racial group, political party, or religious community. And that also could be extended to any other group or demographic area. But the overwhelming majority of victims of voter suppression in the United States have been African Americans. And I want to give you another little historical bit of information. As it has been practiced in the United States, we first thought about voter suppression as a Southern problem. And that's why we got the 1865 Voter Rights Act in the bill. And so people started to focus on it as a part of the Civil Rights Act. But let me just tell you that in 1865 to 1877, right after the ending of the Civil War, we had a period what was called Reconstruction. And at that point, we also had a legislative state government, federal government that was Republican led. Now, what they did in the Republican Party at that time is that they made a series of bills, they passed a series of bills which did the following. It guaranteed citizenship and equal and civil rights to African Americans. And particularly, this was African American males as a result of being freed from slavery. 2, it prohibited redistricting or restricting or denying the right to vote on the basis of race. 3, it criminalized terrorist activities of white supremacists, primarily the Ku Klux Klan. Now, this comes into the lynchings and all of the other terror tactics that were used in order so that African Americans would not vote in the South. And one of the last things that it did in 1865 is that it provided federal protection in the form of federal troops to quell violence and especially to protect polling places and voting dates so that people could vote fair and free. So that's a history of what we're talking about. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples that you may not be aware of as to what we call voter suppression. One would be restrictive ID laws. That would be one. But another and a more subtle one is to make sure that you don't have time to vote, that your polling place is not in your particular area or your community, that is not along the bus lines that you may have, or that you don't have time based on if it's 8 to 5 every day, and you work from 8 to 5 and your employer does not give you time off to vote, then that can be also considered voter suppression. So those are just some examples of setting the stage for it. And as I talked about, is that we came to the Voting Rights Act. Now in 2013, the first Voting Rights Act, or the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act, it was gutted. Let me just say it clear and simple. It was gutted. And the reason why it was said that the South no longer had to be monitored for the activities that were directed primarily at African Americans. And let's say the poll tax or the activities of the Ku Klux Klan. So that took care of that in 2013. Now, here we are in 2021. On March 24th, 2021, the Michigan legislature, the Michigan Republican-led legislature, introduced a series of 39 bills. The Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP committee went through, our president, Mr. Hampton, went through and he found 2 of 39 that may be okay. When I looked again at that second one, Senate Bill 300 and 301, I found that there were sanctions, criminal sanctions, that you could be considered or could be criminalized and have a felony against you. One, if you disclose early voting results or made any other mistake as a reference to that. The other thing I want to say about voter suppression is that here in Michigan, you saw it come out in March. This is a national strategy. This is a national strategy. It is not just in Michigan. It is all over the United States of America. It is a serious assault on voting rights that have been won with the blood, sweat, and tears of activists and my ancestors and my current friends and family. So when we say that this happened a long time ago, March is just 3 months ago, and we're continuing. They have not voted on these bills, but they are moving through the legislative process. The intent is that if all 39 does not pass, but if they're, so for example, if they pass the legislature and they're sent to the governor, we know that she will veto them. The strategy is that at this point in time, they're getting ready to start an initiative, a citizens-driven initiative to reintroduce and to get signatures that will still make this a law. So therefore, bypassing the governor's veto. Be aware and be very, very vigilant that our voting rights are on the line. That is what voter suppression is, and that's what we face right now. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is criminal expungement. Criminal expungement means basically getting rid of a criminal history if you have been arrested and convicted of a violation. And why do we say that this is important? Because primarily it is African-American people that have been criminalized in terms of having records against them. And the United States of America, we have the highest rate of incarceration in the world. And that's saying a lot outside of even Russia. But getting back to expungement, the one thing about expungement is that, why am I talking about this? Because it impacts housing, it impacts employment, it impacts education, whether or not you'll be able to get or to keep a scholarship or a fellowship to go to school. And also one of the other things that it impacts being able to get a professional license. A lot of men that come out of prison, the one thing that they know how to do is cut hair to become a barber. You can't get a barber's license if you have a criminal record. So that is why this is important. Our current prosecuting attorney, who is also a member of our branch, has really emphasized that people should come in and find out about having that record removed. And so as a part of our branch, you can come to our legal redress committee as another avenue. It also is chaired by our current public defender of Washtenaw County. So you have, and the other members of that committee are also attorneys. So you have a very wide breadth of information that will help you through this process. And the last thing I would like to talk about for the NAACP Ann Arbor branch is that we're in the process of putting together a series of town halls. You know that we already have our monthly meetings, which are on Monday nights, the first Monday of every month. But in order to meet the public demand, we want to provide additional information. So look forward to what's to come from elected officials, from administrators, such as maybe the county treasurer, that will talk about the monies that have come in because of COVID, or the Jobs Act, or the county commission, or to look from information from our police department and the chief of police. Those are some of the kinds of places, because we want to put action to you moving through and doing your civic duties to let you know what's out there and for you to have a voice, but first for you to be aware. So I thank you for your time. I've probably gone over my allotted time, but thank you so much. Again, Mary Hall Cham, and I am the current chair of the Political Action Committee for the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joan Sampieri. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area. Let me start first by telling you that we're about to change our name to the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County, because we believe that we represent all of the constituents of Washtenaw, not simply those surrounding Ann Arbor. It's always been our mission to do that, but now we're making sure that you know that we're doing that. The League is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences those public policy issues through education and advocacy. At the moment, we have a fairly broad-ranging agenda. We register voters, which I think is what we're most known for. But for many years, we've done a great deal more than that. We've monitored and spoken on legislation, such as what's currently in our state of Michigan legislator, with our state of Michigan legislators. 39 what we consider voter suppression bills are currently up for consideration that we think would severely limit all of Washtenaw County and the state of Michigan's ability to access voting fairly and securely. So that's one thing beyond registering you to vote. We also hold constant educational programs through our Lunch and Learn series, which are held at noon on the last Friday of the month, where we talk about things like voter suppression or healthcare, or a variety of other issues like gun matters that face all of us here in Washtenaw County, but are especially difficult for people who are in underserved and underrepresented communities. We also host a Brews and Views on Wednesday nights. And again, we sort of mirror the things that the League of Women Voters is working on. This time out, we have someone talking about the Electoral College and its impact on our relationship with how we vote. We are heavily working on the redistricting commission. We have taught people how to speak to the redistricting commission, which you may recall is looking at the maps for Washtenaw County, actually for the entire state, but for our concerns, Washtenaw County. We are educating people on how to speak to that commission, how to begin to draw their own maps, how to look at what the commission is looking for, which is communities of interest. And they may be groups that we haven't ever thought about before. For instance, the people whose homes were flooded in the dam break here in Michigan, not in Washtenaw County, but in the Midlands, have formed a community of interest to be considered people who should be represented and whose voice should be heard. And each of us can be heard by the commission, and the League of Women Voters is making sure, with the cooperation of the commission, that that can happen. We specifically work with the NAACP on issues like this, because when we speak for our constituents in Washtenaw County, and also go to our state League of Women Voters or our National League of Women Voters, not everyone either looks like me or understands the issues in the same way that I do. And I and the rest of my board and our members want to make sure that we hear all the voices. It's why we're participating in Juneteenth. because we see how critical it is that everybody has equality in this nation, that we all have access to the right to vote, that we all have access to health care, that we all have access to jobs, not based on the color of our skin or what our religious beliefs are, or whether we went to a particular school, or whether we are gay or straight. All of us deserve proper representation. The NAACP has a long history. As a matter of fact, it's just a little bit older than the League, has a long history of making sure that the civil rights and the voting rights of people of color have been represented. And the League is proud and happy to partner with the NAACP to continue that fight and add our voices to it. I appreciate the ability to come together with the NAACP and with other organizations, and hope that you will hear how committed we are to making sure that your voice is heard as well as mine. Thank you very much.